Hello, everyone. It's lovely to see you all here. Thank you so much for joining our session today. My name's Grace Picking. I'm a product manager in the Microsoft Entra ID engineering team, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Krista and Rohit. Krista, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, thank you, Grace. My name is Chris Young. I work as a program manager in the Verified ID team in Dublin.
Hi everyone, I'm Rohit Gulati. I'm a product manager as well in the same team, focusing on Verified ID. I'm dialing in from London. I work with customers and partners on Verified ID. Great.
Thanks. So today we've got a really exciting session for you. We're going to talk to you all about the wonderful world of Microsoft Entra Verified ID. And we're going to specifically focus on verified global onboarding and help desk scenarios with the help of Entra Verified ID. I do just want to remind you that this is a public event, and so if you need to, you can drop and rejoin. We are also recording this session, so please be mindful of that, and it will be available to you on YouTube shortly after the call has finished. I would also like to ask you, please be respectful. This is a normal Teams call today. It's not a Teams live event. So if you do have any questions, feel free to just raise your hand using the raise hand feature, or turn on camera and do it physically if you would like to do that. Or alternatively, just pop your question in the chat window and we'll get to you as soon as we can. So let's talk about Verified ID. Why are we here today? The concept is not something that Microsoft has come up with. And it's based on decentralized identity, which is where previously at Enterprise, we have really focused on the concept of centralized ID, one organization with one directory to rule them all. And quite simply, that's just not good enough these days with the emerging threat landscapes that we have and the increase in fraud. So what we're going to do today is do a recap of what Verified ID is. And then we're going to run you through our scenarios for Verified Global Onboarding and Helpdesk with Verified ID. We're going to deep dive on these scenarios with 3 awesome demos, which are based on our samples, which are available for you in GitHub to get your hands on. And we're going to go through Verified ID setup, as well as tap or temporary access passcode generation and helpdesk scenarios with our fantastic new to the market FaceCheck technology. So let's kick off. So just as a recap, where does Verified ID sit in the world of Microsoft Entra products? So when we talk about the Microsoft Entra product family, we have 3 main columns that these kind of sit in. We have our core identity and access management offerings, which includes the Artist, formerly known as Azure AD, which is now Microsoft Entra ID. We also have Microsoft Entra ID governance for all of your Entra identity governance needs, including the likes of lifecycle management, access reviews and access packages, and privileged identity management. We also have Microsoft Entra External ID, which was formerly Azure AD External IDs, which is catering for your B2C partners and B2B as well. Now, where we sit with Verified ID is in the new shiny identity category. However, we've actually been GA since 2022. And Verified ID is not something that Microsoft has come up with on our own. And we're going to tell you a little bit more about that now. So it's important when we talk about decentralized identity and what it means is that it's not something that we developed ourselves. It's built on a core set of standards. And it's based on 3 key bodies. So first of all, we have the issuer. So the issuer is an organization that creates an issuance solution that needs information from a user. That information is then used to verify the user's identity. So for example, you might have an issuance solution that enables them to create and distribute verified credentials to all of their employees, and that employee uses the Authenticator app to sign in with their username and password, which passes an ID token to the issuing servants. Once that company validates the ID token, the issuance solution creates a VC, a verified credential, that includes claims about the employee and is signed with Woodgrove's decentralized identity. The employee now has a verified credential that is signed by their employer, which includes the employee's DID as the subject DID. We then have the user. So the user is the person or entity that is requesting a VC. For example, Alice is a new employee at Woodgrove and was previously issued her proof of employment verifiable credential. But when Alice needs to prove her employment in order to get, say, discount at a separate company, she can grant access to the credential in her Authenticator app by signing a verifiable presentation that proves that Alice is the owner of that decentralized identity. And then the company that's offering the discount is able to validate the credential that was issued by Woodgrove in this instance, and Alice is included as the owner of that credential. Now, the last piece of this puzzle here, as you see on the right-hand side, is the verifier. And that is a company or entity who needs to verify those claims from one or more issuers that they trust. So an example would be ProSwear. They trust Woodgrove and they do an adequate job of verifying their employee's identity and issuing the authentication and valid VCs. And then when Alice tries to order the equipment she needs for her job, ProSwear will use open standards and presentation exchange to request credentials from the user, proving they are an employee. For example, they might provide Alice with a link to a website with a QR code that she scans with her phone camera, and then this would initiate the request for a specific VC, which Authenticator will analyze and give Alice the ability to prove the request to prove her employment to ProSwear. And then ProSwear can then use the verified credential service with APIs or the SDK to verify the authenticity of that verifiable presentation. So then, based on the information provided by Alice, they give Alice the discount. And then if other companies and organizations know that Woodgrove issues VCs to their employees, they can also create a verifier solution and use Woodgrove verified credentials to provide special offers. So this is all based on open standards. It's not something that Microsoft developed on their own. We are, in fact, actively collaborating with the members of the Decentralized Identity Foundation, referred to as DIF, as you can see on the bottom left-hand corner here, as well as the W3C Credentials Community Group and the wider identity community. We have worked with these groups to identify and develop these critical standards, and the following standards have been implemented in our services. We have W3C Decentralized Identifiers, where the ID user creates, owns and controls independent of any organization or government, and these are globally unique identifiers. And they're linked to the decentralized public key infrastructure, and the metadata is composed of JSON documents that contain public key material, authentication descriptors and service endpoints. We also have the trust system. So in order to be able to resolve these DID documents, they're typically recorded on an underlying network of some kind that represents a trust system. Microsoft currently supports the ID Web Trust System, and it's a permission-based model that allows trust using a web domain's existing reputation, and it is in support status of generally available, so you will get all of our SLAs associated with that. We then have the DID user agent or wallet. We at Microsoft have that within the Microsoft Authenticator app, and that enables real people to use the decentralized identities and verifiable credentials. What happens is the Authenticator creates the decentralized identity, facilitates the issuance and presentation requests for the VCs, and manages the backup of your DID seeds through an encrypted wallet file. We also have the Microsoft Resolver, which is an API that looks up and resolves the decentralized identities using the did web method and returns the did document object, which is DDO. And then the DDO includes the DPKI metadata associated with the decentralized identity, such as the public keys and the service endpoints. And then, but last but not least, this wouldn't all work from a Microsoft perspective without our Microsoft Entra Verified ID service. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And that is the issuance and verification service in Azure and a REST API for the W3C verifiable credentials that are signed with the did web method. And they enable identity owners to generate, present and verify those claims. And these form the basis of the trust between the users and the systems. Ultimately, we have one API to verify anyone for anybody in the world from Microsoft. And since we launched, we've had thousands of implementations across hundreds of verifiers for multiple scenarios, such as onboarding, verifying guest access with entitlement lifecycle management and governance, partners, student certifications, level of security clearance. There's lots and lots of possibilities. And enterprises are able to issue using existing Entra ID subscriptions. So with the One API, they can also be used for third-party partners such as LexisNexis for verifications against passports, driving license, or attributes like credit scores, social security number. And this is all accessible through our open source library that we've integrated in the Microsoft Authenticator wallet. But there is also an SDK if you want to develop or integrate this into your own app. We also recently announced our FaceCheck using Verified ID just last month. And FaceCheck is a privacy respecting facial matching feature, and it allows enterprises to perform high assurance verification securely, simply, and most importantly, at scale. It adds that critical layer of trust by performing facial matching between a user's real-time selfie and a photo. It's powered underneath by Azure AI services, and by sharing only the match result and not any sensitive identity data, FaceCheck actually protects the user's privacy while allowing organizations to be sure the person claiming an identity is really them. And the importance of this is we've seen such an increase in fraud, and the ability and the tactics of fraudsters is growing in complexity, especially with the advancements in generative AI. So identity verification has never been more important. We've got lots of information around how we power this under the hood, but ultimately it's a user-centric liveness match. We check for likeness and liveness, which is important. If you've seen any of these strange YouTube videos with people trying to use deep fakes or quite simply print a picture of someone's face, put it on a mask over theirs and try and get around these systems. And we actually only produce that confidence match, and that's the only thing that's shared with the app. We don't share that actual selfie liveness and likeness check itself, just that confidence match. And that match is performed within the verification app's cloud data boundary. And the service can detect a wide variety of spoofing techniques and is conformant with this ISO standard IEC 30107-3 PAD, which is the presentation attack detection. And they're validated by iBeta level 1 and level 2, conforming to those tests. So who's using this right now? So BMO, not a typo for demo, I promise, is a leader in the help desk services for cybersecurity operations. And they actually are already using FaceCheck to quickly verify the identity of an employee and reduce the risk of impersonation. The liability of granting an admin role to the wrong person is high. So FaceCheck provides an extra layer of insurance. And in the past, they said that they had to trade off between increasing the risk of fraudulent access or increased compliance risk by collecting personally identifiable information in an ad hoc manner. Now, they verify the identity of an employer instantly and with high confidence without trading off between security and compliance. And more than hundreds of their business customers have already implemented FaceCheck. So I'm going to hand over to Rohit now, who's going to take you through some of those key scenarios that are the most popular ones that we see out with our enterprise customers. Rohit, do you want to take it away?
Thank you, Grace. Let me just take over the screen share. Just want to make sure my browser is visible. All right, so I will take the second part of our conversation. We'll go through a bunch of scenarios and we will focus on how do we get this setup going in the environment. So first things first, we've been getting feedback from customers on where I could use this platform. Verifiable credential needs an ecosystem, but is it like a replacement for traditional IAM solutions, or should we look at specific patterns? So far we have seen customers using Verified ID across these 4 tracks. How do you make sure that the person who is getting interviewed comes and shows up on day one at the office. So how do you make sure you secure the remote onboarding? Onboarding not just for employees, but contractors, vendors, contingent staff. And we've also seen staff mobility scenarios when a user moves from one department to another. When you need to onboard a user to a strong authentication method, usually when you say, hey, get yourself this FIDO registration process done, but to onboard a strong authentication method, user today the pattern is user weak, like a username password model. So can we secure that path as well, so that we can secure that channel? And then can we offer account recovery models, like can I use my driving license to reset my enterprise password, get myself a passkey, generate a temporary access pass? And there are patterns where we see customers using it for line of business solutions like ticketing tools, or let's say event signups and so on. So let's do a double click. I see a hand up in the chat, Raghavendra. I see you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Rohit. So actually, just wanted to check with you because last time also I have attended the session and it's a really useful feature for us. What the real challenge we are facing today, because this I need to involve for my company HR as well.
Hmm.
So to convince them like this whole ecosystem, how it is working and all those things, do we have some kind of use cases or some additional details also would that be possible to provide so that we can able to tell, okay, for the existing system may fails on these kind of areas, whereas it is super duper hit in these kind of areas. So those kind of solutions they are asking, and those are, I think, is a real world scenarios, and they are very much optimistic about to know about that.
Sure, sure, sure. So I had a slide which is just after this, Raghavendra. So if you see my screen,
Yes.
um, we have been, as I said, the talk now is to share what customers are doing. So for a workforce environment, we see for a pre-hire, new hire journey, a bunch of use cases where you onboard a user through verified ID, give them access to benefits app, get them going on IT systems and applications, but also make sure that as a part of their recruitment to new hire process, uh, you are submitting attested data into your let's say HR systems, and which are then pushing data to your directory. So that's one side of the things. At work, the pattern which Grace was calling out on the slide deck, the help desk pattern, we see that pattern being used with verified ID quite a lot these days. How do you secure that particular channel when someone calls up at the help desk? How do you know that the caller is the right caller? And then how do you make sure that when you have sent a B2B invite to a guest, you had sent an invite to Rohit at Microsoft.com? How do you know it is the right Rohit who has redeemed that invite? Can I bring up verification in the B2C journeys and so on? So, and alumni also, there are a bunch of use cases. So there are a bunch of patterns. We will publish this slide deck. So surely you can share this with your HR system. Uh, we'll also do a bunch of demonstrations. So this recording will cover how you make it real. Uh, the first thing I want to call out is that help desk pattern. We recently published a solution blueprint on our documentation. You can introduce these verifiable models in your help desk process, like an inline process, or maybe like a pattern where let's say if someone is calling up at your help desk, the help desk can direct the user to call up at the verify themselves at a specific link. So that link can be pushed via a channel that could be based on SMS, or it could be a public facing site on your public facing portal. User can access that link on their mobile browser, and the user goes through this journey of presenting a credential, presenting a face check, and then IT can bring in self-service automation as well. We will do a live demonstration now. How do you set this up today? At the end, when IT is responding to such requests, they are usually dealing with service desk solutions. So how do you make sure that all that interaction that the help desk is doing is also logged into the ticket? You can use things like webhooks with verified ID. So right from sending the initiation link to accepting the verification logic coming from the user and then offering these automation steps. So we'll do a demonstration today of that whole sample as we go along. Raghavendra, I still see your hand up. Is there
Yeah,
any question?
yeah, definitely. So it's a really interesting use cases you are referring here, and one of two or three I could able to imagine it. One of them is the B2B, and other one is the B2C scenario. These are
Mm-hmm.
the mostly used in my company, of course, for help desk as well. So which would be the like quick one? As a demonstration purpose, we can able to showcase uh, an easy one to implement by showing that one, so the people can get the confidence into that, and then it's easy to converse to the people. Okay, this is how we have implemented this system, and further we can expand into the new joiner, lever, and all other use cases which you just now explained to that one. Really, this slide will helpful for us. I'm not sure you may able to share with us into the real format.
Now we will forward that this deck to everybody post the call, and as this video will be on YouTube, you can obviously refer it offline as well. So, or reach out, ping us via various channels. So we'll help you as you go along in this journey. So I'll just move on, given the time we have. I know there's some interesting chat happening on FaceCheck as a topic, so we'll bring up this particular point as I complete this slide. So on the workforce side, we spoke about a bunch of scenarios. On the consumer side, think of that loyalty point scenario where, let's say, I'm a airline user and I can get loyalty points in the form of such verifiable credentials. Now, but it is just not about accruing points. I can use such points against, let's say, getting access to lounge, maybe getting access to the partner services in the ecosystem, and obviously sharing such credential with FaceCheck when I get to maybe things like lounge access in the system. So you could easily build these kind of patterns. We also mentioned a bit on entitlement management. For those who don't know entitlement management feature, think of it like a model where you could enable self-service for your employees and guests. As a self-service pattern, the user can request access to resources. Today, when you look at this pattern, you can add layers of approval, you can set up access reviews and attestation. Yeah, you can add resources that are teams, group memberships, resources that are on Azure or connected with Entra ID. And then user will go through a self-service process. But user clicks on a link, authenticates, and gets through the journey. But if what if in that particular pattern you need some extra attributes which are not in the directory, like are you the right Rohit who lives in London? Are you the Rohit who is 25 years and above? Are you a UK citizen? Are you a data scientist by profession? Have you completed a specific training? Some of these attributes may not live in the directory. So you can bring such attributes using verified ID. And when you reply to SOX audit processes, you can also say the permission was given based on a specific attribute. My last slide before we get going in the demos. The first thing, there are two ways to onboard the setup. The first way is to look at bringing the service online using Quick Start. It's just like a one-click deployment model. It works for customers who use M365 service and they have a custom domain verified. It is a Microsoft managed key based model. When you click on this service, it brings up the verified ID service online, and then it creates a template. And the template by default that gets created is verified employee. And using that template, you can then issue such credentials to your users, and then you can create multiple such templates. So we'll do a bunch of demos as we go along in this setup. So let me just bring up my second screen and we'll go through the first set of demos. So let me. So we'll start with. I'm also bringing my phone mirror as we go along in this journey. So the first thing I'm going to show is that quick config. How do you bring the quick config setup live? I'm currently using a new subscription. It's an M365 subscription. It could be even an Entra ID free subscription. In this particular subscription, the thing I want to show you as a prerequisite is that you need to have a custom domain verified. Now, as you have this setup baseline created, you can come to this verified ID blade. You need to be a global administrator or authentication policy administrator to get access to this blade. And you'll see this option which says get started. The first style is about quick config, and there is an option for manual config as well. I'll do both demonstrations today. So let's start with get started on the quick config. I click on that button and you can see the setup is going through that journey of verifying those prerequisites that I mentioned at the start. And within 30 seconds, the service will be up. The service is online. If I go to organization settings tab, it shows me my decentralized identifier. So DID is decentralized identifier, not decentralized identity. And there is a pattern for this identifier. You cannot modify or create or use your own pattern. It uses a pattern which, as I said, it's a Microsoft managed key based model. It set up identifier based on a path and followed by your tenant ID and the authority ID. We are using the portal and we have set up a environment, but the platform does allow you to create multiple authorities using admin API. And we'll come to admin API in a bit. Now, let's move on to the second piece of the demonstration. Um, I spoke about verified employee template. This template gets created by default. And if you look at this template has 8 attestations coming from my directory, including my user principal name mapped to revocation ID. And there is a manifest URL. I can do some basic styling for this credential template, but this is a managed template. Can I create my own custom templates? Yes, you can. Let's just look at that piece as a next piece of the demo. I can use add a credential. I can say custom credential, and I can create a definition. So the display definition talks about how my card should look like, and rules definition talks about how do I get those attestations for those claims. So if you look at our documentation, on our documentation, we have called out these multiple patterns. Directory-based employee is that verified employee. ID token hint is when you need to fetch attributes from multiple systems. Some data could be in, let's say, SQL Store, HR systems, identity proofing services. So in that model, you will use ID token hint. ID token attestation is for any OpenID Connect provider model. It could be even the likes of identity server that you may deploy in your network. Presentation attestation is when the user presents a card to get a new card. So think of it like, give me a baseline card so that I can give you your employment card. Self-issued attestation would mean the user can supply inputs like preferences. And I've seen a customer implementing this for hotel check-ins. Every time the guest would come in, they would present a form. The user was in the past selecting their preferences like cold water in the room, soft pillow in the room. Why can't I just present that information as a verified ID? So every time I check in, all I'm doing is scanning a QR code that presents my preference at the time of check-in, and I get all that. Multiple attestation is when you combined any of the above stated pattern. So let's just take the basic example of ID token hint. There is a sample file available. I'm going to use that to create a custom template. I'll give the label verified credential expert, and I'm going to put the display file, and likewise, I'll give a copy paste to the rule section as well. So what we are capturing in this model, we're capturing first name and last name, and we are uh, issuing a verifiable credential expert for a user. So you can create multiple such schemas and definitions. So this is a very quick demo on quick config. I'm gonna now show you the manual config model, and you'll see there are a bunch of steps to it. So I have this a single subscription. So let me just opt out from this service, and we will do this demo together for setting up on the manual config side. So when I would use manual, when I need to manage my own keys, it requires you to have Azure Key Vault. You can see there is a difference in the screen experience. You would set up your identifier. It'll allow you to specify your trusted domain. So I could say that my organization name is rg-eu, and I have a trusted domain, the domain namespace that I own. And you could see there are options where maybe you could verify this domain. And then it allows you to select your key vault store where the keys will be created, the sign-in keys. So let's just select you could use the create new key vault. If you have a key vault where you have access, you use that and select that. There is in our documentation, we call out the permissions that are required to set up a new key vault. So follow that prerequisite as a start. And the first step is all about generating the identifier. So for now, my step 1 is done. Now I need to follow step 2. Now, what is this step 2? Step 2 is all about registering the decentralized identifier, which means you need to generate the DID document. The DID document is that JSON construct, which has the link domain field, the service endpoint, the hub endpoint where my status list is hosted, and the set of public keys. So I could either copy paste this and host this JSON file on a path, or I'll download this. And I have another browser screen open. I'll take this file and I'll upload this to my uh, web root path. So let me just connect to uh, the so in my demonstration, I'm hosting this on a storage account. So let me just upload this to the $web path. It's a static website that I'm running. I'll just say upload and drag. It has to be on .well-known. And when I click on upload, I have the did.json file hosted now. So if I go back to my setup and if click on refresh registration status, you can see it's able to find this did document. Some of you in the past came back with some feedback. Some of the troubleshooting tips, just make sure you're able to browse this did document from your browser screen. So the redirects are not supported. Please do look at that as a part of the documentation. The last step is to do the verifying the domain ownership, which is you got a DID generated from the system. How do you link that DID to the domain that you own? So did configuration JSON is that file. I'm going to just copy and download the file. I'll upload this file to that storage account path again. So I'll upload this time, selecting this path, upload, and now I have the did.config.json file on the path as well. I'll just say refresh, and you can see now all my steps are done. So when I go to credential tab, since this is a manual config, I don't have any credential template. All I have done is verified my domain. My setups is all done. Now I can follow the same pattern of issuing credential. I'll just show you another piece of demo which I missed in the previous step. So when you use the create credential option, let's say I'm going to pick the URL path for my logo. So in our documentation, there is a sample file, so you can use the same logic. So let me just go and select the same logo URL. And I'll click on update. So yeah, I have a Ninja logo and it's a verified employee, which means it will take attestations from my directory. When I click on create, I have this manage template created from the manual config. So you see the difference in the quick config, we create this template for you from default setup, while in the manual config, you have to create it. And then you can scope this out that make it available to all users or selected users, and you can issue it through my account. So when you select this up and save, now users who are targeted as part of this process, if I click on myaccount.microsoft.com, I'm going to log in as one of the users. And as the screen comes in, you will see under the profile. So let me just log in as my test user. From this particular test setup, under my profile photo, there's this button called Get My Verified ID. I can use my Authenticator app and receive my first credential from my setup. So I'm just doing a phone mirroring right now just to show the experience on the mobile. So I'll just say scan. And we will see a message on the Authenticator app. It is coming from my authority. I'll click on add, and I can then accept this credential issued to be my employer, which has attestations from my directory. So that's a quick demo on quick config and manual config. Now, how do you get this going? So I showed you when you are setting up your environment, you could use verified employee attestation and get going in the setup, but you could then take it to the next level. So we'll bring up let me bring up my other browser, and we'll do a quick demo on. So in our GitHub repository, let me just take you one level up, there are Postman collections available and also samples across multiple platforms. Let's start with the Postman collection. So you could start testing your environment using Postman. The simple way would be to maybe I want to set up issue and verify functions in my line of business app. So that means I need to use request API. If I had to set up my environment, set up credential contracts, search and revoke credentials, then I'll use the admin API. So just click on the hyperlink and you could then fork the repo, and you'll see there are options available. When you will set this up, it'll not only download the collection, it'll also ask you to look at the environment variables. And in my collection, I'm just going to quickly show an example. It's an authenticated API endpoint. You could use client credential flow. You can use certificates. There are multiple such patterns. I'm using client credential flow in the Postman. I have an app registration done. Now, there are some sample collections available in the public collection, like the basic one. Can I issue myself a verifiable credential expert? So there is an API endpoint reference where you need to send the post request, and then a reference to the payload. And all I would do is if I just send a request, you will see by default the pretty tab. You take your mouse to the visualize tab, which will show you the QR code, and I can still do that phone mirroring and scan this QR code to accept this credential. I'll just show you this example because the contract that I have in my lab is that mixed style attestation. I keep on getting this kind of a question, like, can I do this mixed style attestation? So I'm scanning this QR code. Let me just move this a little bit up. So I have scanned this QR code. You'll see there is on the view, there is a credential with ID token hint payload, which is my first name and last name, but it is prompting me to specify my display name. So I could say my display name is this, and I can click on add. So you can see an example of multiple attestation. The card has ID token hint payload, but I'm adding self-attested as well. And when I click on add, and I have this credential in my wallet with my first name, my last name, and my display name. Similarly, there are present queries in the public collection, like the present query for presenting a simple verified, that same credential that I accepted, and you can use these Postman collection to get going in the setup. Now, let me move to my last piece of the demo, and then I'll pass it to Krista. In our repository, the sample number 1 is the basic sample of getting a web app deployed with basic issue and verify functions. If you look at the README, I'll come to that ARM template thing in a bit. It has got 2 sections. There is issuance sections. There is a verification section. You could deploy the sample as is, or you could just stripe out the issuance or verification model, whatever you want. Before you get this sample started in your setup, you need to have some prerequisites. You need to have your verified ID setup done. You need to have an app registration done, and you need to have the right permissions set up, including the admin consent. You could always run this sample locally, like if you're using VS Code, you could use tools like ngrok to run this sample locally. But what we have done, we have added this option to run this sample using an ARM template. So if I just click on deploy to Azure, it'll ask me to sign in with an account that has permissions on the Azure subscription. It'll trigger an ARM template to deploy an app service. And as a part of this app service deployment, you'll be prompted to specify a bunch of tasks. I'll not spend time to run and specify everything, but you could see that with this sample, it'll start showing up like this, like a sample website. And you could use that to issue and verify credentials. So the issue credential option will take that template that you specify as a part of the ARM template, the manifest URL and the VC type, and you could just then issue and verify credential. If I take you to the verify tab, you'll see there are extra options in the base sample. I will let Krister cover that as a part of his showcase, but you could do things like FaceCheck and add constraints as well. And using the same sample, there are options that you can specify uh, uh, templates on the URL path. Like if you see my browser, from the repository, there are multiple samples available for presentation definitions. So for example, the one that I have is asking the user to present an identity proofing credential from True Identity. So this time when the user will scan, they will be prompted to present True Identity. So I will pass the control back to Krister because we have 2 more samples to talk about, and I'll keep an eye on the chat and respond to questions if you have any on the set of demos that I have done. Krister, over to you.
Good. Thank you, Rohit. I'll share my screen and let's continue. That's the screen. There's a hand up. So while I adjust a few things here, yes, go ahead.
Go ahead with the question. Okay.
Yes.
I think it was just an acknowledgement. All right. Krister, you're up.
Okay. Good. So the samples, we're using .NET samples, but as Rohit said, we have them in Node, Python, and Java, even though .NET have the most options. So what Rohit described was number 1, and I'm going to talk about the number 5 and number 6. Number 6 is available, and we use that in the launch for FaceCheck in early February. And what we do with the samples nowadays is that you can run them locally, you can deploy them, but we try to make it as easy as possible to deploy them. So if you want to just kick the tires and test them, you don't have to do too much configuration. So this one, the Woodgrove Helpdesk sample, which is available already deployed. So if you type Woodgrove Helpdesk, Woodgrove, I can spell Woodgrove Helpdesk, Azure websites.net, you will get an existing and deployed version of it. The source code is available in the GitHub repo that I'm going to show here. Yep, here it is. So I'll close that down. What we can do is deploy this directly to Azure. So I'll start that, copy the link address, and it's just a norm template that is going to deploy. And it asks you for a couple of details, like the standard one: what's your subscription, what's your resource group, etc. What do you want the thing to be called? I'll call it Demo 6 Helpdesk. What do we want to pull it from the GitHub repo? And what's your DID? And the DID is my identifier, because I'm going to be signing the presentation request. So I need to go to the Entra portal and look into the organizational settings and copy the DID from that configuration, because that identifies me. And off we go. That's validating the template. Everything looks in order, and off we go. I'm going to leave this now because this takes a while. So I'm going to go back to sample number 5, which I've already deployed, and explain what that is. And then we'll come back to the help desk. Sample number 5 is probably the most versatile and complex sample we have, because it covers 2 scenarios. It covers guest onboarding and also employee onboarding, to give you an idea of what you can do with those type of onboardings. The employee onboarding was demoed at Ignite in November. So if you saw that one, or if you've found the recording from Verified ID where we demo how we do onboarding, that's that part. Guest onboarding is added, and we didn't demo it then. Guest onboarding is for B2B guest onboarding. Employee onboarding is about using tap codes to bootstrap the user to get onto the system in the first place. Guest onboarding is you have a trusted business partner where you trust their businesses, and you're okay with onboarding them onto your system. Previously, you send out invites via the portal and you get an email, and you need to click to redeem the invitation. You don't really need to do that anymore. You can actually use this sample. So if I go to demo 5, onboarding, and if you deploy this sample yourself, please make sure that you read through the instructions for how to set it up, because it requires that you set up all the things in detail in order for it to work. You need a key vault to sign the invite, and you need permissions in order to generate tap codes, etc. So I'm going to sign in. This is a deployed sample. I deployed it just before this meeting and configured it because I don't want to save time. So if I sign in as an admin, currently signed in, so this should be quick. Yep, I'm signed in. I get a few extra options where I can register a new hire, and I can update the who's trusted to do the onboarding. Since I'd like to let my B2B users do the guest onboarding themselves. I tell the B2B guest that, hey, go to this app. If you have a verified ID, a verified employee credential type, you can do this yourself. You don't need to get an invitation email, etc. Just open your laptop and go to this website and do guest onboarding. And what it says here is that if you have got a verified employee credential, go ahead and onboard yourself, because we will let you in. So I'll share the mobile device also, so you see what's happening, where I have the authenticator. So let's move that to the side a bit, like this. Do it like this. So I say, yep, I have it. I don't need to go to my account and issue it like Rohit did. It creates a QR code that I'm scanning. And if I have a credential of verified employee type, which I do, I will use my, why not? I can use my Microsoft, why not? What it does here is setting up me as a guest account. So it does the same thing as the B2B invite where you get an email, but everything happened in line here. So, oh, that's bad. I have already done that. I should have cleaned this up. So let's do that again. We have to use the other one. So let's pick the other one then. That one should not be used. Yeah, that's it. It says here in the third pane, that you need to redeem your guest invitation. We have set up your B2B guest account, but you need to redeem it before a certain point in time. And the way to do that is actually to sign in. So if we jump back to our portal and do refresh, we should have a user by the name of Basil. There he is. And if I look at this user, and scroll down a bit, in this section, you see B2B invitation. It says invitation state pending acceptance, meaning that we're waiting for the user to redeem it. And the way to redeem it is actually just to sign in, meaning I prove that I have possession of the account. And since I need to specify the name, it's going to send me to my tenant. And I get the standard. I need to accept the terms and conditions and let the app read my profile, etc. And then I'm onboarded as a guest user. Which means that if you have a series of trusted companies that do have their verified employee credentials, you could use this as a self-service onboarding. And you could even potentially, on a certain frequency, ask them to redo it to re-verify that they still are in possession of the account. So back to sample 6. How do you deploy these? Well, the ARM template deployed the code to app service, and everything is done and ready. But you cannot, when you deploy samples like this with an ARM template, you can't just start using it. You need to do the final configuration. And in this one, I'll jump back and forth here. The number 6 Woodgrove Helpdesk sample has an instruction that in the end, you need to do some configuration because it's using managed identity, which is an easy way to get going, and you don't have to click around too much. You just have to more or less copy this, change the 2 first lines for your tenant name and your app name, and run that. So if I do the same, the easiest way, you could run it locally, but the easiest way is just to open up the Cloud Shell. Oops, I shouldn't have done that. I don't know why it's now it's fighting with me. Oh man, how do I get? Okay. Well, never mind. This is even better. I'll paste in this PowerShell, which what it does, it gives the deployed app the permission to talk to Verified ID, because you can't just call our APIs without the permission. You need to have the permission to call it. And I'm asking it to grant permission or to do presentation requests. I'm not going to issue anything, so just having the right to create presentations request is okay. So that was that. That was quick. Let's close that one. And in this, let's restart it to be sure. It's restarting, so it's taking some time. So yeah, in this case, you see that the app is deployed. I started this before I started to talk. I just ran the few steps with PowerShell, and it's good to go. And if demo gods are good, we're going to get a QR code. Let's switch to this one. Probably starting up. So you can see how it should be working. And this scenario is I need to authenticate myself before I can get help from a help desk. And he asked me to present my credential, and not just my verified ID credential. You also want me to do a face check. So let's do the face check, some legal stuff, and then I'll do the scan. And I'm ready to share the results with the relying party who is asking for it. And you can see that something was failing. It's too dark in my room, so it's not working. But you saw the concept. Why not? Of course, it should. The demagogues should fail. Rohit, something you would like to add about the help desk portal and the Teams extension?
Yeah, right. So let's just do that. So I'm going to take over the control just to talk about a pattern and just to elaborate, just to say, just to share what you can do with that help desk sample. So let me take over the control. In the sample number 6, you will see that in the CSTML file, there is an option to, sorry, let me just bring up my, there are options where you could introduce a webhook. So, and that webhook could then be used to capture that payload and send that payload on let's say on a Teams channel or a service desk tool. So let's just open an example. In my sample, we have a Teams webhook called out, as you can see in my example. It's an adaptive card. Uh, it is taking that payload name, email, and the JTI from the VC, and it is updating the Teams channel so that the help desk person can identify who the caller is. And this would be my last piece of the demo, just to show the art of possible. I created this verified help desk team channel, and if you look at the there is a channel called uh, let me just do another search, verified help desk. Too many teams. Yeah, right. So
yeah, you have it at lower end. Yeah, there.
If I click on support, you could see that whole notification was sent as a webhook adaptive card. So you can easily stitch this solution. The case study that we have from BMO, they have done that in their ticketing tool. They introduced this as an inline function. When somebody calls up at the help desk person generates a ticket by clicking on a link, generate ticket, that sends out that link to the user. If there is a email channel that if defined or SMS channel defined, The user clicks on that link, presents that verified ID. The help desk receives that notification on the Teams channel, as well as since in that URL the ticket ID was added as a query sync parameter, it can update the ticketing tool as well. And this model works with any ticketing tool that supports, let's say, REST API, could be ServiceNow, BMC Remedy, and so on. So this pattern you could easily adopt and bring it to life in your system. I know we are on top of the hour. Just last slide, just to bring things to conclusion. We have a set of partners who have been in the identity proofing space. But if there is a partner with whom you would like to work and bring identity proofing solutions into your setup, please reach out. We have solution partners as well. We have now 9 case studies, multiple scenarios you can see from the system. And there are a bunch of resources as well. We didn't do our pre-sales demo today. It is also around onboarding, but link number 9 is something you can also use using Authenticator app to demonstrate onboarding of a new hire. So with that, there is one last thing I have as a request. There is a survey link on the chat. We would really appreciate if you could respond to that survey. It'll be good for us to know whether this session was helpful, what should we be doing in the next iteration, and if there's any feedback on any of the feature, please use that survey channel to give us feedback. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you all in future sessions as well.